Time to go milk man.
Hello, and welcome to a special edition of the Storied Arcs podcast. I am your co-host, Mike.
And I'm your co-host, Alex.
And we have a special guest host with us today.
I'm Andy Huizenga.
And right now we are in the car on the way to Columbus GalaxyCon in December 2023. And we thought we'd just have a little comic chat, not so much about the con, but just because it's three nerds gathered together in like 10 square feet of space. So we're going to be talking comics one way or the other, right? That's inevitable. So we might as well make it intentional, have a topic, a cue, and talk about something in particular. And I think what we settled on is the best stuff we've read in 2023.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, we're recording beginning of December. You're probably listening to this, it's the end of December, right? So there's maybe a few weeks left where I guess potentially something could come out and kind of blow our minds as being phenomenal. But
I'm looking out for Our Bones Are Dust next
week. I do have a book that I already know will be on my top 10. It comes out in a couple of weeks. It will have been out by the time you hear this, and I already know sight unseen it's going to be great because that's just how I roll. But
is that Animal Pound?
What? Well, no. It's actually it's a Brubaker Phillips book.
Oh, so, well, okay. Yeah. So we've named three already.
Yeah.
They aren't even out yet.
They're going to come out. So by the time you listen to this, these are books that are, maybe they were new this year. Maybe they were just new to us this year. Maybe they were a series that wrapped. Maybe it was an actual brand new number one that came out this year. But yeah, we'll go around the car here and maybe kind of go one at a time. And hopefully Andy doesn't wreck. Andy doesn't wreck the car as we're talking here.
And depending on when this comes out, you could use this as a holiday shopping gift guide for the nerd in your life.
Yes, it's possible.
That's true,
yeah.
Or Boxing Day if it doesn't come out by Christmas.
Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe closer to Boxing Day.
Be the first American to celebrate Boxing Day.
Yeah. We might have international listeners who celebrate Boxing Day. Who knows?
That's true. We actually do have a fair number of international listeners. Yeah. So,
and there could be some expats.
Bear in mind. Anyway, Alex, do you want to kick it off? It's your topic, and I suspect you have the longest list.
I probably do have the longest. I probably have the most.
Why don't you take two for every one that each of us?
Yeah, well, I did try to list. In terms of like the best, I got like 4 or 5 that I think I'll talk about, and then there might be a dozen honorable mentions. But I'll start with there are a couple books
from my list.
And a couple authors a couple creators that if they put a book out, it's guaranteed to be on kind of my best of the year, top 10, top 20, top whatever. One of those teams is Brubaker and Phillips. Obviously, Mike and I have talked about Kill or Be Killed earlier in this show. Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips are my favorite team in comics. They put out an OGN called Night Fever, which is it was really kind of their first book not set in America. I think Sean Phillips had said something about wanting to draw European cities, maybe something he was more familiar with, and something he didn't need a bunch of reference for. So,
and frankly, they're prettier.
Yeah, they are. They're older, if anything. So,
well, yeah.
But Night Fever is about an American. He's a book agent, a literary agent. He's in Europe for work and can't sleep. He ends up at a eyes wide shut kind of party and gets drawn into the kind of seedy underworld of Paris. So it's a cool OGN. It's a self-contained story, not connected to any of their other like Criminal or anything like that. And maybe in your head canon, like in my head canon, all their books are connected. They're all part of the Criminal universe. I've made them all work that way. But Night Fever is standalone. But if those guys put a book out, it's going to be my top 10. And they're who I was talking about. By the time you listen to this, Where the Body Was is another OGN they have coming out in December. Will have come out in December. As far as I understand it, that's a murder mystery book that's told from like multiple perspectives.
Shocking stuff that they would do a murder mystery.
I know it is, yeah, but not straight detective. I think it's told from like a dozen different perspectives in terms of I guess the various people in and around this house. So maybe like a Clue-ish kind of thing or a Knives Out kind of thing. Like I said, sight unseen. That book will come out in a couple weeks from where we're recording right now, and I can guarantee you it'll be on my top 10 or on my top list of 2023.
Yeah, and I'll just add a caveat that I have a list here of things that came out this year that I have and are meaning to read. and that was number 6 on that list. Which I'm sorry to report, things that came out in 2023 that I bought and would like to read at some point is longer than my list of things that I read new in 2023. Part of that is to blame on the podcast. Like, you were rereading The Unwritten, and I was trying to drink from a fire hose with that series, 2 trades a week, and most of those required rereads before podcasting. So anyway, those are my excuses. Okay, well, that's a great one. Andy, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I had forgotten I picked up Night Fever 2. That was an impulse buy, so I didn't have it on my tracking spreadsheet, but I'll echo that. That was, I think, one of my first, you said Brubaker Phillips,
Brubaker
right?
Phillips, yeah.
I think it was one of my first entries. Did they do Velvet, though, too?
That was Brubaker and Steve Epting.
Thank you.
Which is
but
Winter Soldier.
Yeah, so
Winter Soldier
I read
yeah.
Velvet, but Night Fever was an impulse buy, and I really enjoyed that one. I like the Eyes Wide Shut reference there. One of the continuings that actually came out this year that I liked is Kill Your Darlings.
I love that book. It's on my honorable mentions list.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember who's writing it, but I think a lot of the variants are Stegman. Ryan Stegman, I don't know if he's actually writing it, but I know he's been doing some of the covers.
No, he's not one of the writers there. Okay. No, but yeah, I know. I can figure some of the variants.
And I know it's not Ethan Sachs. He was doing A Haunted Girl. That was one I read, but yeah, Kill Your Darlings has been really good. It's been like the way I would describe it, if anyone's ever read I Hate Fairyland, you take Gert, but you get her, she has this make-believe, fantasy world that she doesn't actually quite think it's real. She thinks it's just like a pretend make-believe friend. And then it turns out, oh crap, it really is real. And there's a catastrophic event that takes place when she's a kid. And then that does a time jump years later. And she's been like in a mental hospital, institutionalized, dealing with the trauma of that. So I think issue 2 or 3 just dropped, and so now you get to see the time jump forward, and suddenly, just as she thinks everything is better and she's normal again, out pops one of her little mythical friends, busting her out of this place, saying, "Oh yeah, it was all real." And so now, chaos ensues. But that's been a fun read. I'm looking forward to adding that as a regular to my list.
Yeah, that's a great. Real quick to clean that up. It's co-written by Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan, and Bob Quinn is the artist and colorist. So yeah, that was on.
John J. Hill has an artist credit too.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's a pencil or what.
He is the letterer.
Letterer. Okay.
Yeah, but no, that's one of the books that's on my honorable mentions. Yep. It's really really fun, really really cool idea. Yeah, I love that book. Great pick.
And killer first cover. Like, I know you're talking about the variants, but the A cover was like, well, there goes $4.
Did Stegman do that A cover? That might have been.
No, I think Bob Quinn does the main covers. I think Stegman has done a lot of the variants. Maybe not all the variants. Maybe not variants for all of them, for all of the issues, but been pretty close to it. Yeah. But it's a book that I picked up because you see that first cover and it's mostly white. It's kind of like it got a pink background, pink, purplish, like shrubbery and all that, and it jumps off the shelf. And I'm glad I picked it up.
In the title so far, I haven't really quite picked up how it fits into the theme. It's Kill Your Darlings. I'm like, okay, the story the preface sounds good, and you read it and you go. Normally you hear a title of a book and you're like, okay, I see the tie into the story. I'm still waiting for the Kill Your Darlings. I don't know if it's coming or if it's just maybe it's a phrase I don't know, but yeah, it's been a great read.
It feels intentional. I mean,
you don't. Yeah, I think it'll probably be the end of issue 5 or 6, like whatever the end of the first arc is.
Yeah. I mean, you don't use a literary reference like that and not plan to actually use it. Yep. So
right.
Yeah, no.
I mean. This is not a spoiler because it will already be out by then, but it's like how the phrase Descender does not come out until volume 5 of that series. And that's the first indication of like, oh, he's not stringing us along with all these one-shot backstories and stuff like that. This is all pretty meticulously planned.
There's intention behind everything that creators do. So yeah, the idea, you see the phrase "Kill Your Darlings," and if you already have some sense of what you might expect. And I think there is an anticipation. There's a waiting game of, what are they playing at? When they chose this? What are they? What's the other meaning, deeper meaning there? So, but I look forward to that as well. I think that book's been a blast.
Okay, so my first choice. These are not ordered in any way.
No.
So now I'm debating.
We're not ranking them. Just
I don't know. I'm debating. Okay, do I want to lay the claim to the Jeff Lemire one? Since that's kind of my shtick. Do I want to do the big 2 one that I have on my list, which is a violation of the podcast etiquette here? Or do I want to do the one that's out of character for me? So I'm going to go out of character first.
Well, to be fair, I did not put any Lemire on my list because I figured you would do that. So
okay, yeah, you knew I had Fish Flies covered.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to that.
Even though I do love this series and a lot of things that he's doing right now, I left those for you.
Okay. So my first choice then, officially, is to do a power bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Which I have to say, I have very mixed feelings about going into. Now, my friends growing up on the west side of Cincinnati were very, very into professional wrestling. I never got it. I would, hang out with them for Raw is War and, the WWF Wolfpack and all this other... That was kind of the era. And I was like, I just don't get why we think this is awesome. Although I do like Andy Kaufman's stint in professional wrestling, but that's kind of a different take on it. But Daniel Warren Johnson actually also did not like professional wrestling. He just started watching it out of sheer boredom during the pandemic. And so he kind of came to it as an adult. And so having a book written from someone who, it always existed, but I just discovered it as an adult, was a great entry point for me. And I think it's a fun book, and kind of like its subject matter, it's not life-changing or profound, but it's campy and it's fun, and it's just really well done. And I think the big thing for me is Mike Spicer's art.
Spicer does colors. Yeah.
Colors, right. But the colors just are vivid and they pop, and it's everything that professional wrestling, in my understanding, is supposed to be. It's campy, it's fun, it's trash talking. It's got some heart to it occasionally, but it's mostly just a fun read, and we don't really do that on the podcast. I think you and I both read fun comics, and I think my 2022 comp of it's super fun, it's super colorful, it's vivid. There's just not much to talk about would be Twig.
Yeah.
And I think Do a Powerbomb kind of fits into that category. Obviously, genre-wise, completely different.
Yeah. I think there's a level of heart to everything that Daniel Warren Johnson, I think, does. Whether it's Do a Powerbomb,
Falcon.
I would say Murder Falcon
God,
is a book. It's very ridiculous and absurd. It's based around music, but there's a lot of heart there.
Yeah.
Extremity is set in a kind of a fantasy world, but that's about an artist who loses her hand, and so there's Do a Powerbomb is effectively about wrestling. But there's a deeper story about family and connection there. So there's always a different, a secondary level there, and on the surface level is something that's silly and often absurd and ridiculous. As I said, Murder Falcon is like that. So the very nature of professional wrestling.
I think this is my first Daniel Warren Johnson.
Yeah, he has those levels there. I mean, even when he's done Big 2 stuff like Wonder Woman Dead Earth or the recent Beta Ray Bill miniseries, and he's doing the new Transformers line at Skybound, which I'm super, super excited about.
I'm shocked by that.
It's been weirdly violent.
I've seen it on a lot of people's best of 2023 lists.
It is.
It's going to be. Yeah, it is. One I was going to mention.
In terms of kind of coming out of the gate swinging, it's very, very interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I have been looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to see where it goes, because I've only been a couple issues out at this point. So, but yeah, Daniel Warren Johnson is great, and Do a Powerbomb is fantastic.
I'm glad you guys mentioned that. I actually picked that up on a Black Friday sale as a Christmas present to myself. So
yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's what Black Friday sales are. As an adult, right?
Yeah, that's all they are. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then somebody asked me if I had a Christmas list. I'm like, no, I pretty much had me covered.
Yeah. I got what I wanted. I'm okay. Yeah.
I'm like, you just buy things for my daughter and we'll be fine.
Yep.
So Do a Powerbomb.
Yeah, great book. All right, I guess swing back to me. I another of I mentioned Brubaker and Phillips, and they put a book out. It's going to be my top 10, always my best of. Another book, another creative team. When they do that, they'll also always be in my top 10, my best of. They just put out books a lot less frequently than Brubaker and Phillips, and that's the guys behind Black Sad, Juan Diaz Canales and Juan Guarnido. Guarnido. Jesus, I can never say that. Guarnido. But they're the two Spanish creators who write a book in French about post-war American anthropomorphic animals in America, which sounds very, very weird, but if you've never read Black Sad...
No, that's like, you checked every box I have.
Which one is this?
This is Black Sad.
I hadn't even heard of it.
Oh, Black Sad is phenomenal.
And it's an oversized.
It's an oversized book, yeah. Absolutely beautiful. The art, the way it's painted, and it's absolutely stunning. But it's some of the best noir detective storytelling.
And can I say this? That you have to read it physically. Like
Yeah,
I think I bought it on Kindle, and Comixology.
If you've got a nice enough tablet, like a big enough tablet, to really get the colors to shine, but it's
it's like the way the page size gets compressed down into tablet size.
Well, I'm saying,
didn't work for my tablet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you've got a big enough tablet, it'll look good. I don't have a big enough tablet, but people out there have. Some people read on like a Surface or something like that.
You own a Samsung projector.
Yeah, if you have a big enough tablet, it'll look fine. It looks gorgeous. But it's they released They All Fall Down Part 3, which is the final part of the last story that they've told so far. Parts 1 and 2 of They All Fall Down were released in 2021. So, it takes them about 2 some odd years to produce about 70 pages of material. And if you've read the books, if you've picked them up, you'll understand why. On top of the fact that, again, these are 2 Spanish creators who write a book originally produced and published in French, then is translated into English, even though it is a story that is set in America. There are a lot of weird things going on there, but trust me, it is one of the best books that's out there. And so if there's a new Black Sad book, a new Black Sad story that comes out, it is always on my best of. So They All Fall Down Part 3, which at this point I think has only been released in English digitally. Like, there are no physical copies. Physical copies come out through Dark Horse, and those usually come out a year after they're released in Europe. So the only way to read it right now, this Black Sad story, is read it digitally. But eventually, next year, there'll probably be a hardcover for Part 3, and then maybe in like 2027, there'll be a hardcover of all 3 books together, all 3 parts. So it takes a very, very long time for Black Sad to come out in print, but it is absolutely worth it when it does. So if you've never read Black Sad, Andy, I'm looking at you, it's a book you should definitely go pick up and read. Right. One of my absolute favorites.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, what you got?
Keeping in the theme with Black Cloak.
That is on my list. Yes,
that's Kelly Thompson. And you've got the phone, and I can't remember who's doing the art on it.
It's all right. You're driving. It's Kelly Thompson and Meredith McLaren on art. Yeah.
So again, I'm a variant cover person, so there have been some really nice variant covers on that. Tulote has done some, which I've just loved, and I've bought multiple of those. But that's a story that I first started off. It's a detective story.
It is.
I would say. But it's kind of in I thought it was future, but I don't know, futuristic fantasy.
I think it's a fantasy
elves,
sci-fi. There's magic, and there's
magic,
higher
elves,
technology.
Fairies,
Yeah, absolutely.
Mermaids, which apparently are hot garbage, or stay the hell away from them in the book. But that's been good. The whole story arc came out this year. Mm-hmm. I think that might have been a digital first. Maybe it was a Substack.
I think it was through Substack last year, 2022. It came out in Image this year. Yeah,
absolutely beautiful. You get a lot of comic. I remember. I can't remember if it was a $3.99 or $4.99 cover.
Oh
price,
yeah, no.
But you got a lot of comic.
It was
a read.
The first issue might have been triple size, and I think
it's $4.99. Yeah, it was triple length.
I think the first issue was triple length, and then I think
56 pages.
Yeah, the subsequent the next issues 2 through 6, I think, were close to double length, like maybe 30-ish, 40 pages, something like that. So you're right. There was a lot of comic.
You're getting a lot of good bang for your buck on that. I don't know if it's been collected yet in a trade or.
If it has, it just came out recently.
Okay. I think it's going to be like the spring, because I think they're on issue 6, right? Like last month.
Well, no,
the series the arc wrapped up.
Yeah.
And I think they're coming out. I think the second arc is supposed to come out next year.
Oh no! Yeah, six came out in August.
Yeah. So
it should be a trade by Christmas.
There is a trade. It may have just, as we're recording, it may have just come out like within the last couple of weeks. If not, it'll definitely be up before the end of the year. So, but yeah, no, that's another one on my list too. Andy, Jesus, you're stealing my stuff here. It's a good thing I've got so many honorable mentions on my list because someone keeps. All right, no
I think everything else on my list, aside from what I'm going to do. So I also have I was excited for a book in 2023. Didn't live up to my expectations. But we'll do that once we've gone through the whole. So continuing, you picked up on the word black theme of Alex's. I'm going to pick up on the theme of last names I had struggled to pronounce, which was the conclusion of Chip Zdarsky and Marco Cicchetto? Cicchetto.
Yeah.
Okay. The double C there always throws me off and makes me...
Cicchetto too.
Yeah.
Okay. But so they wrapped, I think, in July or August with a 14-issue new number one, classic Marvel nonsense, that is in no way a true number one. It says direct continuation of their 2019 story. It's just the Red Fist saga was a 14-part miniseries that wrapped up their run. And the Zdarsky, the Chip Marco run on Daredevil was just incredibly satisfying. It really brought me into a character that I didn't really care about, and that is an ongoing series. But their run ended, and what I never suspected would happen happened, which is I'm now pulling the following writer's Daredevil, which is another new number one.
Is that Ram V?
No, that's Solid.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, they left it in such a cool place. I want to see what the next person does with it. So I don't want to say anything about it because I don't want to spoil it because it is like relatively fresh, and I think that Daredevil run isn't even in trade yet. But I loved that.
Which one?
The Red Fist saga, probably parts 1 and 2.
Oh, the end of
the end of
maybe not be.
In that 14 series, that was quite a departure from his original 30
it was
some
much
issue run.
Right. His first run was like
very street level.
Yeah. This was very like cosmic Daredevil going to hell, fighting demons, stuff like that.
Appearance of the white suit too. Sorry.
I know. No. I'm like, I really want to talk about how it ends, and I'm like, I shouldn't do it. Some people care about spoilers, so I won't do it. But I also have to say, honorable mention, things that either ended in 2023 or came out in trade in 2023. Since I'm talking about Zdarsky, he gets one slot. I'm going to throw out Stillwater. Really loved that. That's Ramon K. Perez on the art.
Yep.
And Public Domain, that I absolutely like. That's gonna be one of my favorite books. Whenever he has time to pick that back up. But he's a very busy man now, also writing Batman, and probably a notable absence. I am not including his ongoing Batman in my favorite things I read of 2023. I'm kind of in and out on that. Like, I'm pulling it. I have them all, but it's not like excited me. Like his first couple issues, I was like, oh yeah, Zdarsky's Batman. And now I'm like, I'm just going to read this all in trade and kind of catch the whole... I want the wide-angle lens on what he's trying to do with the character. But Stillwater, really beautiful art. And Public Domain, just a great meta-commentary on creator-owned comics and art.
I picked that one up this year, and it kind of went back and forth on whether I should. I'm sure it's in a trade now, at least the first arc.
It is.
Right?
I'm pretty sure it's in
The
a
first
trade.
arc trade, yeah.
But yeah, it's basically about like if you were like the son or grandson of like a golden age comic creator, and like basically if you were Jack Kirby's kid, and they're making all of this cinematic universe out of your grandpa's stuff or your dad's stuff, and you're like, hey Dad, how come you're not making more than $10 on this? And he's like, well, I just loved making the stuff. It was super fun. It's like, no, lawyer up, get in there, go do it. And he goes in and he's like, hey, great news, I won. And they're like, oh, great. So how much money did you get? And it's like, no money. I'm allowed to keep writing those characters I created. And it's like, are you kidding me? It's like, yeah. No, I've got my own comic label now, and I still get to write those characters. That's That's what winning is. And it's like his kids are like, Jesus, like how stupid can you be? So it's like, okay, now the whole family is on board for like, well, if we want to make money off of like the thing that's blowing up in cinemas and the thing that our father worked his whole life for, we all have to pitch in and make these comics great and make money off of comics.
Interesting comic to come out the year with the writer's strike and the residuals not getting paid.
Prescient,
I
yeah.
I mean,
I think it came out 2022.
Yeah,
was the single issues.
It was another book that
Preface,
it was on his Substack initially, and then
I
came
didn't
out.
know that. Yeah,
then came out in print. It's very similar to Black Cloak in that way. That's so we would have come out in initial stories in 2021 maybe.
Yeah.
And then issues in single issues started in 2022.
Right. So I have
yeah.
it with an asterisk because it's category fraud for me to put it on the 22. But I read it in 2023.
Yeah, well, it's new to you. I mean, Do a Powerbomb single issues came out in 2022, but the trade came out in 2023.
Right, and I don't have the single issues on
Yeah.
that. I just did the trade.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my shout out to Zdarsky. And I don't really have much to say about Stillwater other than like it's mystery. Set in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Stunningly beautiful covers. I think if you look at the covers and flip through the first issue, you'll know, oh yeah, this is my jam, or it's not really my thing. But to know that Zdarsky has that in the bag, like, oh yeah, I got that club. I can pull that out and do one of those really well. While juggling, at the time he was juggling Marvel and DC for hire work and his own public domain, which I think he also illustrated.
Yeah. Public
yeah.
domain is when he writes and draws himself.
Yeah, so it's just like, yeah, apparently this guy just has a lot of free time. Or doesn't at all. But yeah, he spends a lot of time on comics. We'll put it that way.
Stillwater's a great book.
He's Canadian. He just can't say no, right? He's too polite.
Yeah. Yeah, they pay him in Tim Hortons and loonies. All right. And bags of milk. All right. All Canadian shots fired. Alex, what do you got?
Mike, you just did a whole bunch of on Chip Zdarsky. Then I had something similar. Andy just mentioned Black Cloak, but Kelly Thompson is a writer, maybe my writer of the year in terms of books she put out.
You read The Call?
I had 3 books here that she had put out this year. Black Cloak was one. The Call, issues 1 through 4 out this year with Mattia Deulis on art, and also her first DC work ever. She had been Marvel exclusive for years. Writing a whole bunch of stuff from Kate Bishop Hawkeye to West Coast Avengers to a very, very, very long run on Captain Marvel. Yeah. But she moved over to DC with the team that she did Hawkeye with, Leo Romero and Jordi Belair, and they're doing a new Birds of Prey book, which is really, really fun. Centered around Black Canary, and she's putting together a team, and they have to go basically infiltrate Themyscira. And it's a lot of fun. I love Leo Romero's art. He's an incredible artist. And getting that creative team back together from Hawkeye to do Birds of Prey has been an absolute blast. And I mentioned The Call. The Call is a super cool, super trippy, super weird book. The elevator pitch has got this kind of Goonies-esque coming-of-age adventure story mixed with a little bit of fantasy horror elements to it, little bit of apocalypse, end of the world kind of thing.
Some giant monsters.
Giant monsters, different dimensions kind of thing. But it centers around a group of kids that can kind of live on a coastal town. So then they kind of go out to make a film, out to the beach to make a film, ostensibly, but they go through like a cave and end up in somewhere entirely different. But it's a really, really cool book. And I think for this past year, this calendar year, I think Kelly Thompson, she has long been one of my favorite writers, but the books she's put out, the variety of books she's put out this year, have been an absolute blast, and I've enjoyed them all. Yep.
Strong endorsement. Hopefully you didn't have another Kelly Thompson, because like Alex and I are now like licking all the donuts by like anytime any creator comes up, we're like, yeah, and also everything they did. Andy, what's your next one?
Yeah, so to revisit, I'll definitely talk about Transformers. Like you were talking earlier with Daniel Warren Johnson. I mean, the fact that he's writing and doing the art on it, I thought when I heard that announcement, kept thinking to myself, I was like, is his art style going to work for Transformers? Because, they are transforming robots into vehicles, and I think more sharp edges, but man, does it work. And man, did he amp it up from IDW's run. IDW kept it a little bit more family friendly. As a child of the 80s, I always kind of wished Optimus Prime was my dad. But I was at, Peter Cullen, who voices him, is going to be at the con this weekend. He's not there today, unfortunately. I would have dropped that amount of money for a selfie with him. But man, that first issue,
I can get you one with Photoshop.
that first issue, you nailed it at the end where it was violent. Yeah. I was like, yeah, this is not a comic. This is a comic I'd probably consider giving my son. He's 12 and getting to that age. But, my daughter wanted to say, I want to see Transformers. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to do that, sweetie. I mean, there was a squish, and there was a squish.
Yeah.
Starscream was not messing around with this one.
IDW book probably better for your kids at that point. Your daughter definitely, yeah.
And I collected most of the IDW. I either have all of the IDW in a hardcover, digital, single issues, few, just their story. This story was really good, but, especially with his whole, Energon universe that he's doing.
Yeah, that Robert Kirkman's doing, taking over Connected Universe.
Yeah, so then, that surprise for everyone, I don't know if it's going to spoil someone else's, Void Rivals.
At this point, it's been out.
It's been out.
Yeah, Void Rivals is on, issue 6 or 7 at this point, so if you haven't caught up at this point, sorry.
That was probably one of the best kept secrets of this year. I picked up Void Rivals on a complete, Kirkman, that looks kind of good. And you turn to that page and you're like, wait a minute, that looks, holy crap, that's Jetfire.
Yeah.
And then the cat's out of the bag, and Kirkman now helms Transformers at Energon Universe, and we are off to the races with that. So yeah, Transformers for me all the way. Instant subscribe, and I normally don't even subscribe. I just I go to the final order cutoff every single week and pick the covers I want, but that's an instant subscribe. Give me all those A covers, and I'll, of course, buy all the...
Now, did you grow up as a Transformers fan?
100%. Okay, absolutely. Okay. I saw, I was, that movie came out, I think, in 86, so I would have been 7 years old when I saw Optimus Prime die on the big screen. So many kids cried in that theater, including myself.
Yeah, I actually am not even aware of a Transformers adaptation prior to Michael Bay.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I never saw those.
There's a whole... I don't want to, hijack the podcast with Transformers trivia, but it was purely... I have the original issue, #1. It was a comic that was... It started off as a comic, became a cartoon, completely created to sell the toy. And actually, another interesting side fact, after the reaction that the kids had to Optimus Prime dying, in the G.I. Joe movie,
they changed it
so Duke didn't die. Because they were like, we should not have done that.
Yeah, so, even though, and they changed it by just adding some really, really clunky ADR.
Yeah.
That clearly makes no sense if you watch the
He's just
movie.
Out of the movie. He's just injured.
Yeah. Well, he's in a coma, and then thankfully he's okay at the end.
Yeah.
But no, Andy, we don't talk about these things in front of Mike because Mike hasn't seen any of them, even though he's only barely a handful of years younger than us. He hasn't seen any of it.
You described something that happened in the movie theater when I was maybe 1 year old, probably not 1 year yet.
Okay, yeah, that's fine, but I can describe things like
Star Wars.
I'm intimately familiar with Empire Strikes Back, and that came out when I was -1. Yeah. So don't give me the excuse of I wasn't born yet. It still exists, you still grow up with it. So but Transformers is great. I'm looking forward to that.
It's been good.
Yeah,
it's been a great read. If you're a Transformers fan and you're into the comics,
they're
happy.
They're starting the new G.I. Joe line as well. They're continuing the existing G.I. Joe Real American Hero line written by Larry Hama with issue 301,
which continues from the IDW, right?
Which continued from the Marvel.
Marvel and IDW, whatever.
Yeah, I've read all 300 issues and the 301st.
Oh, wow.
It is that's the most important thing. It's the only important thing when it comes to the Hasbro license, that Larry Hama is allowed to keep writing Real American Hero.
Talk about continuity, right?
Yeah, and then which this happened with IDW as well. when IDW got the license, they're saying, we're doing our own G.I. Joe, Ultra Transformers. That's fine. That was their continuity. And then there was also the Real American Hero continuity. And now Skybound is doing the exact same thing. Josh Williamson, they're starting out with 2 books. I think it's a Duke book and a Cobra Commander book that'll be coming out. Duke, number 1, may be out by the time you're listening to this. I think it should be.
Is Josh Williamson doing that?
Yeah, Josh Williamson's running both of those, yeah. And the Cobra Commander, I believe, comes out in January. So that's Skybound.
You keep tabs on it.
Yeah,
but
they're starting their own universe, which is cool. But the important thing is Larry Hama still writing Real American Hero. The stories and the character work that he created for G.I. Joe is absolutely insane. And it's the most incredible thing, and I love it. And so I'm happy that it was a calendar year without the Hasbro licenses once it lapsed at IDW. So it's good to have both those back.
Cobra Commander looking almost probably going to be just as violent as Transformers. You can pick up some of the preview pages at the back of the Transformers book of Cobra Commander 1, and it does end with what appears to be a scream and a splash of blood.
Yeah.
So again, if you're a child of the 80s, you love Transformers and G.I. Joe, it's back. It's a good time to pick those books back up and keep reading.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, and it sounds like it's probably also designed to be a new entry point for people with no nostalgia.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then
here's all the characters. Here's some one shots.
And that's the thing is the idea of the Skybound taking over the licenses. They're starting a whole new continuity. This is their version of these characters.
That's a good point. So if you were collecting the IDW, this is different.
It's a break and starts over. Yep.
But even the first issue, if you remember the show, someone my age, you're going to go, yep, this is. Yeah, they're going to take
There's
some
very
liberties,
Gen 1.
But very Gen 1, very much like, okay, yep, this makes sense. So you'll be happy.
Yep. All right, Mike, back to you. What do you got?
Well, I'm alone on an island now. So I have 2 things on the list that this is when I read them, and it's when the trades came out, and perhaps the final issue or 2 of each. But we already covered them on the podcast. But I'm just going to shout them out,
mention them,
just in case people didn't read them. Which is Gospel by Will Morris, with covers by Verse, and 8 Billion Genies.
I have 8 Billion Genies all on mine,
By
I think only the last 2 issues, 7 and 8, I think, came out.
Well, and
Wish World,
and the Comic-Con exclusive, which we didn't get to talk about in the. Which I read.
Did you? I was going to say.
Yeah,
did you all order Wish World?
I did. Yep.
Yeah. So did I.
And did everyone here read it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh God, it was a great story.
It was great, and I was like, you could feed me so many of these one-shot stories of here's someone else in that time frame.
A different part of the world. Here's what they were going through. Absolutely.
Which I suspect, if they're clever, the Amazon series will do that to kind of pad the runtime a little bit.
You would think, yeah.
And say, like, Charles, how many more of these you got?
I mean, you it's the type of book that, yes, when you read the comic, it's effectively one narrative, but it's structured. It's structured to be an anthology. It just is,
right?
Because it's about how the world changes, how people deal with it. So you can go anywhere with it.
Right. Well, then it's a secular thing, and you're only viewing one cycle of it.
Well, yeah. Well, I said, but even just the one cycle, you're only following the people who are at this one bar for very specific reasons. But so you could go anywhere in the world and tell here's what happens during the time time frame of the comic, which is first 8 minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, yada yada yada. You could just tell it from somewhere else in the world that had nothing to do with the characters we saw in the comic, and it's just it's ready built for that. So.
And you see they did that with, like, AMC did that with Walking Dead, right? There's so many. Yeah. There was the one comic, but then there's Fear the Walking Dead, Walking Dead, and I think there's another one coming out. With
there's a whole bunch there, because it's just the idea of this isn't just happening here. This is happening everywhere. So we can tell a story anywhere. So.
And just to prove I'm just not their ride to Columbus, and I actually am a fan of the podcast, Plume was a really great book. I on your recommendation, I found the hardcover, bought it. I read it digitally, but loved the book. And that's another one that just leaves it open to, there's a lot more stories to tell in that world. Yeah. So, I mean, that was one of the main reasons I bought the hardcover, because it had the 2 one-shots in it that I haven't read yet, but I had to have.
Well, and as we know from the interview with her, she's doing a novelization of it, which is really fleshing it out, because I think she said, I can't remember, she was X number of pages in and basically hadn't got past the first trade yet.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, well, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
And tangential shout out, I met at the Cincinnati Comic Expo a woman named Lydia Scherer, and she's a fiction writer. Her series is called Love, Lies, and Hocus Pocus. It's 8 books right now. No, it's 7 books right now. The 8th is announced for March, and it's going to be a 12-book fantasy, magic, coming-of-age type story. I've read the first 2 books in it so far. Love it. And she's working on a graphic novel/comic adaptation of it. And her top choice for illustrator was Kaylin Smith. But she can't make it work. So she put it out on her Instagram, like, you know, who are some of your, like, favorite comic artists, and, you know, that I could approach about doing an adaptation of this. And I was like, crack my knuckles. Like, here it goes. So I'm excited, one, because she just saw the name of our podcast on our shirts and started up a conversation with me. And she said, you know, I had this whole 12 book thing mapped out before I wrote, you know, the first chapter of book 1. I would love to talk about it on your podcast. I was like, well, put some pictures with it and we'll talk. Which I still might bend the rules at some point. If Alex takes like a month-long vacation and I need an episode, I'm like, I would love to talk about a magic book series. But anyway, so I found that we're not the only Kaylin Smith fans out there. All that to say. And I think we got onto that from 8 Billion Genies somehow.
We did, yeah.
World building anthologies.
Yeah.
Yes, world building anthologies. And I did want to throw out Gospel there, with the key caveat that in 2023 is when the trade came out, and the trade had a different final page than the last issue.
Yeah.
So
for better or worse?
Well, a substantial story change. It was a dagger in the heart of my theory as to how the book worked, and totally bolstered Alex's take.
It reads slightly differently.
It casts a different light on the entire series.
The way the book ends in single issue is a little more ambiguous, and the trade makes it much more definitive in terms of how you're supposed to feel about what you just read. You can go read it we're not going to spoil that there, but understand that's the difference there. And I guess that was something that this publisher went to Will Morris and asked him about, is there anything you want to change, anything you maybe you couldn't get to, and because he felt maybe part of the story may have been a little underserved.
You guys interviewed him on the podcast,
right? He talked, well, Mike did.
I do think that is one of my highlights of 2023, and also one of the saddest things when I think about it, because once I started talking to him, I was like, oh, Alex would love talking to Will Morris.
Yeah, I couldn't make that one, which was unfortunate. But
and I think when you listen to it, it was like, oh yeah, you would have clicked with this guy.
Yeah. But there is it's rare. A lot of times when things go to trade, you're like, hey, there was a typo on page 7 here. Let's fix that. Or there are things you can correct. It was a coloring mistake or something like that. It's rare when you actually get a material change to the presentation.
Itself.
Yeah. I said, it didn't change the story. It does change. It changes the reader's relationship and understanding to the story, which
it puts a finer point on it.
It does. That's a bold choice, a bold decision. But
reminds me, there was a book that I think it was Christian Ward did, Tommy Gun Wizards. Came out Tommy Gun Wizards in series, but when they released the trade, renamed the whole thing to Machine Gun Wizards for whatever reason.
Yeah, there are things like that. Sometimes they'd be like the rights issues or something like that.
Didn't change the story, my understanding. Yeah. The title was kind of a big change. Maybe Tommy Gun was copyrighted.
That's what I'm saying. Sometimes there are things like that where you got to change the name because something else is called that. So it happens, but you don't know that when you start.
Yeah.
That only comes out to the fact.
Oops, my bad. I'll change the title later.
Exactly.
So anyway, those were two kind of cheats on my list. But I think I'll offer one that we didn't cover on the podcast yet because it's still going, and I'm sure it's on both of your lists, which is Traveling to Mars.
Yes, I was waiting for that one.
Yeah, Mark Russell and Robert Melly, who's a new and up and coming artist. Not familiar with anything else by Robert Melly, Meli. Alex, I assume you're reading that?
I have not read that one. No.
Oh,
You're not reading
really?
Traveling to Mars,
It's
really?
Melly. I think it is Melly. I think it's pronounced Melly.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a terminal patient on a one-way discovery trip to Mars, reflecting on his life. And Mark Russell, who is a satirist and humorist, but also can be cutting. The premise, if you just told me, like, okay, this is like a 12-issue series about a terminal patient on a one-way trip to Mars, kind of reflecting on his life, I would have guessed Mark Russell probably would have been in my top 10 guesses, but my number one guess would have been like, oh, that maybe is a Tom King book, because it's kind of a dark premise. It's not funny, the mere concept of it, other than like, the recreational billionaire traveling to Mars type thing.
And I think when you find out who's sponsoring him, then it's immediately,
right.
Oh yeah,
that
this
is Mark Russell.
Russell.
Right.
That
yeah,
makes
yeah.
sense.
Right.
Yeah. Why?
And I will say I'm not current with that series.
Okay.
I think there's at least 7-8 issues out now, and I've
yeah,
probably read through 4 or 5. But I just know it's an automatic for me.
Yeah. I'll give it a shot. So Mark Russell for me has been probably my favorite writer of the year. I know he's been around for a while, but I didn't really discover him until this year. I'll give a shout out to BC at Up and Away. He had, when they were doing their live stream on Tuesday nights of Here's What We Got, he mentioned this Mark Russell, and he said, oh yeah, my wife told me to pull that. There's one left on the shelf. I said, put that in my poll. I'll try it out. And immediately was like, this is fantastic. And then pile that on, you guys did Flintstones. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll check that out. And that one, that was just fantastic.
The internet refers to that as woke Flintstones, by the way.
Yeah. Does it?
I'm like, please do woke Jetsons.
Oh,
I would
okay.
I'm like, Hanna-Barbera should hit him back up.
I haven't gotten a chance to read his Snagglepuss one.
Yes.
Oh, and Not All Robots.
That's probably
the other one.
Not All Robots I read. But yeah.
Snagglepuss is really, really good.
Yeah, I got to pick that up. Flintstones, he was doing a like a Kickstarter for his bunk bed mishaps.
I've got that.
Yep. I picked that up.
And I paid the next tier to get a signed copy of something else he's done. And he messaged me and was like, what of mine don't you have? I was like, pass. I was like, I have everything except I got his book that is his version of the Bible.
Yeah, God Disappointed in You.
God is Disappointed in You. Is that a good read?
It is. I got it signed by him because I already owned all the other trades, and I had read that by him, but I read it from the library because I was like, that doesn't really seem like one that I'm going to sit and read and reread. But I was like, but if it's free and it's signed, I'll take it.
Man, I wish I would have. I can't remember what he gave me signed, but I went the extra tier, and I picked up the hardcover of Flintstones signed by him as well. So, and then did one of his prints where he did a sketch, and it's not great, but that's why.
Oh no! But his variant for Rumpus Room number 3.
I picked up everyone.
Yeah,
everyone. Every Mark Russell variant. You have to. It's like every time I saw a Tom King.
Every time there's a Tom King variant that says, "I'm sorry." It's the caption bubble every time.
No, Rumpus Room right now is a lot of fun, and I have another Mark Russell on my list, which is Serial Sweet Darkness.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that's on my. Yeah. I have it, but haven't read it yet.
Yeah,
but I know I'm going to love it.
The artist is, and I'm going to butcher this one here. The artist is Peter Snedberg.
Yeah, no, I typed that in my
Snedbjer.
Right, I typed it in my notes, and when I looked at it just now, I was like, did I fall asleep and hit my head on the keyboard?
Not going to get it. You know what?
I think it would be a soft J, so it'd be Snedbjerg.
Snedbjerg? Okay.
Snedbjerg.
All right, well...
If you say it fast enough, it doesn't matter.
The man with the last name Jorgensen is gonna weigh in on that one there.
Yeah, anything I see something Nordic, I'm like, I got this.
Yeah, that's on you, brother. But no, so it is a connected universe of breakfast cereal mascots, like OG breakfast cereal mascots. And actually, it goes beyond that. It goes to like
I am old enough for that.
It goes beyond just breakfast cereals. They're the main characters, but it's like all breakfast product mascots. They're all characters in it. But it's super weird and absurd, as is you would expect from someone like Mark Russell. And I think these appeared as kind of like backups and shorts in other books by Ahoy Comics, and they were all collected into this trade. And then I think he added some new stories to flesh the whole thing out. But it's
good.
It's really funny, and yes, if you even have a passing knowledge of Count Chocula and Frankenberry and all that.
Well, here's the great thing.
The Quaker Oats, man.
What I'm hoping is that there's a reference to in the show Community. There's an episode with a cookie wand, and Troy, who is younger than Jeff Winger, says, "It's a cookie wand. Me and Jeff made it for you to make you look more like the Cookie Crisp wizard."
He's in it,
which is not a reference I get, because Cookie Crisp mascot wasn't a wizard when I was a kid; it was a burglar.
I think the burglar's in it.
He is too.
Okay, I was like,
and everyone's in it.
I knew of the wizard, but the burglar was like, oh yeah, no, I remember the burglars in the commercials.
Yeah, no, they pull from just about everything, from the whole history of serial mascots. So yeah, it does require some passing knowledge of who these mascots are.
It's all Googleable.
It is, I guess. But yeah, if you are of a certain age, which is like the people in this car, it's incredibly funny. And again, to weave it all together in some larger narrative.
That's absurd, but makes
total sense.
Total sense.
It's great, and one of the more fun things I read this year, definitely. So, all right. So, did anybody got any more specifics you want to call out here? I'm down to my honorable mentions, many of which you guys have already said. So
I'm down to my want to read.
Okay.
Well, no. Well, I still have Fish Flies.
Okay, we can get there. Andy, do you have any more here?
I got a few that I can just give a shout out.
Yeah, let's do that.
I feel like one that, and maybe you guys didn't read it. James Tynan, World Tree.
Oh yeah, no, that's on my honorable mention.
That's on honorable mention.
We can talk about it now. Yeah, World Tree is great.
That's been a fantastic one. If you're a fan of James Tynan, you're gonna like it, because it's typical so far. James Tynan, it's in that realm.
Well, it seemed like I'm not a big Tynan fan. Like, I'm not a huge fan of like the Slaughterverse and that stuff. But the premise seems a little more interesting to me, a little more like the cognitive mimetic eugenic.
It is. It's from what we talked about. It's closer to like an evolution on mimetic. The idea,
rather than like the House of Slaughter stuff.
Yeah. It's still it is a horror-based series. It's very gory. It's very graphic. But the idea is basically that in 1999, a group of friends basically activated and weaponized like the dark web, which they call the Undernet. And in 99, they were able to kind of shut it down. And then in present day, it basically comes back. And so you have the absolute worst part, the darkest part of the internet has been basically weaponized and infecting people.
Twitter?
It's like that
X?
If Twitter actually killed people, like the app actually killed people, then yes, that'd be what Twitter's a gateway into the underweb.
If we're gonna call out 99, let's call out Napster, but you downloaded the devil. And
and now you are possessed. But so there's this it's technology based, but there's a level of kind of sci-fi, fantasy, and horror to it. But it's a great book. It's on my honorable mentions. It's Fernando Blanco on art, and I think there have been five issues out. The first arc is out and has been collected, and so I think it's coming back sometime early next year with the next arc. So that's a great book. Great call, Amy.
Yeah. And by the way, I did have Napster on my computer at one point, but I was more of a LimeWire guy.
No, yeah.
The other one that I don't know if you guys maybe you read it. It was called How I Became a Shoplifter. I picked that one up.
I saw it.
Yeah. So that one, folks, it's kind of an anthology, and I don't know if it's on a hiatus or if it actually did wrap up. I thought there were more, but it's essentially, I can't remember if it's Sumerian or who the publisher is, but it's basically a series of stories about growing up in the 90s. I haven't quite gotten to the point of them becoming a shoplifter, but it's that starts off as a kid, gets
It's not
into
drawn in
junior high.
quarterly, right? That would. No, it's Sumerian. You're right.
Sumerian,
That's
call,
Sumerian, yeah. So there were a few. There were a few main covers and variant covers that pulled me in. But again, as someone that went through that awkward junior high school phase in the '90s, it just called to me as one that I read.
Oh,
So-
good.
Okay, to my shame, I didn't know any of the creators.
I'm sorry. Well, no, I'm sorry, Mike. I'm just reading through this this synopsis here. Something. Each chapter set in a different year of adolescence, 1996 to 2003. Oh, wait, that's me.
Oh, so even more you.
Yeah. So I guess.
No. Wait. Isn't that more me?
Well, it depends what they mean by adolescence. I guess
That's true. I was like, 2003 would have been. I graduated high school 04.
Yeah,
So that's my literal coming of age.
Yeah, that's
It's 96 to 03.
that is something that I'm going to put on.
That's a fun
I'm
read.
going to try to.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
How easy is it for these creators to bank on our nostalgia?
In
The
cer-
people in this
Oh,
car,
yeah.
we're the sweet age where we still read comics, but we have money now.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're like, what if we just wrote about our childhood? And like,
Well,
Brian K. Vaughan does
Well,
it.
I'm saying
and-
because a lot of the creators, the top creators,
Yep.
are people who are of the same generation now. They're the generation below. They were reading the same books that that I and my brother were reading growing up, and now they're the ones making the comics. So now they're writing about that time when we were kids. So yeah, it's just that, and at some point, unfortunately, very very quickly, the people making comics will now be much younger than us.
I mean, when Stranger Things came out,
yeah.
calling back to the 80s seemed to be the new sort of vogue to do.
Well,
now you're going to start seeing the 90s. It's going to
it-
start happening.
It's
Oh,
almost
yeah.
it's almost always like a 20-year thing,
Yep,
right? Because
exactly.
growing up in the
Yeah.
90s, it was all about
The
70s
70s.
retro,
Yep.
right? Yeah, and then early aughts, it was like, hey, 80s retro. Now we're looking at 90s retro, and so yeah, we're already we're just looking back now, and we're getting close to the early aughts, and that's
See if I got any
That's-
hammer
that's
pants
very-
at
But that's
home,
like
those
more-
heat-sensitive shirts, whatever
Yeah.
they were called.
the hypercolor.
Hypercolor, thank
Yes,
And
yes.
that's more familiar for me because,
Sure.
like, when we were talking about Paper Girls, I was like, yeah, I mean, I know it from like the movies I watched. The kids were from that decade,
Yeah.
but that wasn't my decade of being a kid.
Except you hadn't watched The Goonies, which is the quintessential movie
Still
that's
haven't.
based on Paper Girls.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, I'm over it. I'm fine. It's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. Totally
You're
fine.
over it, but
Totally
brought
fine.
it up apropos. of
Totally
nothing.
fine. Totally fine. Anyway,
I think I really did some damage there.
there's whenever
I'm
this
gonna go home and watch it tonight.
Whenever this
Yeah.
podcast actually ends, that will be the reason. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why we actually end. The reason will be because you hadn't seen Goonies,
Yeah.
not because
even if I'd see it before then,
Yes,
it will be
yes.
the fact that I
you
hadn't,
hadn't
until
seen
then.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
that absolutely. That will be the official reason why, whenever that is. So anyway, I don't know how we got there out of how I became a shoplifter, but that is a book. Looking at it, that
It was that 03 to, it was that 03 to, no, the 96 to 03 thing.
yeah, it definitely
that triggered all of us.
It looks like something that I definitely should read.
It's a fun one.
So yeah, that I will go pick that up. Thank you for bringing that up, Andy. All right, so do you have any? You want to talk about Fish Flies now? Is it Jeff Lemire time for you?
Yeah, I mean, the Fish Flies in Phantom Road, but
Yeah.
more so
Yep.
Fish Flies for me. Fish
Is
Flies
is
for me.
Is that because that's written and drawn by Lemire?
What okay.
versus-
Well, now I do want to talk about Walta on Phantom Road because
Okay.
I love Walta. But
yeah.
no, Fish Flies because there is something about the Jeff Lemire only projects where, like, I just love his quirky, sloppy art. Like, I just can't get enough of it. And I have some nice original art pieces on my wall, but my favorite is my Royal City piece because it's watercolored by Jeff, it's pencils and inks, and it's just like the small family drama story. And Royal City is by no means a popular book, although it's getting a second series now.
Allegedly, it's been on
He's
forever.
got the Image deal now, so it's like, why not revisit something?
Well, I'm saying
kind of rushed the end of. But yeah, he announced it over a year ago.
Yeah, it keeps showing up on the solicitations, and then gets pushed back and back and back. It'll show up at some point.
I was going to say Jeff has never broken a promise on delivery, so I do trust him a lot.
Whenever it does get sent to the printer, it'll be on time. It's just a matter of when that first issue actually gets published.
But like,
not quite
what's
certain
what's
yet.
the comp for Fish Fly? Because it's a kid and a convict.
Yeah,
And it's almost like a Tom Sawyer
A little
like
bit,
Huck
yeah.
Finn thing, but
Did you read that on Substack first, or did you subscribe to
I was paying him on Substack at the time, but I hated reading. Like, here's a page I did this week.
Yeah.
Here's a page this week, and I'm like, just make an issue. Like, I'll pay you in any format you want, including this one. But I want to read it as a collected.
Put it in a nice hardcover, and I'll spend the $50 on it. Just
exactly.
But I mean, the setup though is very that idea of like the kid and the criminal, the mystery man, or whatever it is. That's.
I guess you can't call him a convict because he's not been convicted yet because he's running. Yeah. But he is a criminal.
But
looking for redemption.
The idea,
the kid's innocence.
There is. That's you see that like in Roughneck. You see that in Essex County. It is one of the themes that he returns to. Kind of you see it in Sweet Tooth in a lot of ways.
Oh, yes.
It's the same basic setup, character archetype setup.
Not the show, mind you, because they fundamentally changed Big Guy's character.
Yeah, but
I'm not mad about it. I'm just it is what it is.
It works better for the show that way because the show is.
Is that available to watch in the U.S. yet?
No, well,
Essex
County?
No.
I'm waiting for that one.
No, I was like, I think I just need to take a 5-day trip to Toronto and just watch it there. But my sister-in-law was texting me, did not know it was a comic adaptation, recommended that we watch Sweet Tooth because she just stumbled on it on Netflix and watched both seasons and loved it. And I was like, oh, Becca, you have stumbled across an IP that is from my all-time favorite creator. And so we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, I like what they did a lot, but they did make substantial changes. And she was like, well, like, what changes? I was like, okay. So end of season 1, imagine if instead of them getting separated, big guy's going to come find him. Big guy turned him into the authorities, like betrayed him in exchange for his wife's bones so he could bury her. And she said, Jesus, I don't like that at all. I was like, well, that was the book. But the big man then, goes on a redemption arc and they do get reunited. But then, not going to spoil the end of both the book and the show now. But I loved the book, and I loved that they changed it to make it feel a little less familiar.
You mean Sweet Tooth?
The Sweet Tooth show.
I haven't caught up in season 2 yet.
They also got to expand the world. They got to bring more characters in. So you got to fill the world out because so much of the book is just a two-man show. So you got to make those kind of changes, make those swings for an adaptation. So I think they made the right choice there because you can go in other ways there. But it's still it doesn't take away from the comic. It's still a great comic. So yeah.
I was gonna hold off and get Fish Flies when it came out in a nice collected volume, but then they dropped that Peach Momoko #1 cover. And
yeah,
I was like,
she did a great variant.
Yep, fantastic. That's beautiful.
She did a great variant on that.
Which it's not that many issues, but
3, I think.
Yeah,
I think it's
only 3,
but they're all oversized. They're all massive.
Right.
So.
And then I got 2 on a buy one get one. Now I'm like, well, I might as well just buy 3 now. And
right.
The series.
But we should talk about Phantom Road.
Oh yeah,
sure.
Because I enjoyed Phantom Road, and Walter's forever in my Hall of Fame because of Vision with Tom King. Which one of the topics we had kicked around for this podcast episode was talking about our all-time favorite single issues, and Walter has illustrated one of my all-time favorite single issues, and it's an issue that I think it's the illustrating that made it work for me. I couldn't find the number of it off the top of my head, but I think Alex might even know. The ball bouncing issue of Vision, where Vision's son is bouncing this, it's very Toby from the West Wing, but he's bouncing this red ball for the whole issue. And, it has this persistent, thud, 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 thud for the whole issue. And then there's a big discovery at the end of the issue, and the ball fails to be caught and just rolls. And it was one of those things where it's like...
I can't think of what issue number that is.
Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Okay. Because it was one of those where it was like, oh, that's pretty clever as a writer, but your artist really has to sell that and make it work. And that was a Hall of Fame issue for me. So when I saw he was going with Lemire, it was an auto pool. Not only just Lemire by himself is an auto pool, in the same way that Tom King pairing up with Peter Gross for Animal Pound was like, okay, well, I love Peter from The Unwritten, and Tom King's not out of pool anyway, so I just love these new cross-pollinations from people that I love from Dissonant Projects pairing up together. And Phantom Road, I think I sent a picture. There's an issue, in the first issue, there's a panel very early on where the guy's driving his truck at night and his headlights are on the road and you see his reflection in the glass, and then it slowly morphs into his childhood self in the reflection from the headlights. And I took a picture of that and I just sent it to like Alex in a text, and I was like, sum up Jeff Lemire in one page. Here it is. And,
yeah, it's a really good. It's a really fun, cool book, and I'm with you. It's cool to see. You know, Walter hasn't done. I mean, they worked together on Sentient, the book.
TKO.
TKO, yeah. With TKO and their
3-issue.
No, I think there's 6 issues, but their idea of like, we're going to put the trade and all 6 issues out at the same time, and then we're going to wonder why no one buys anything from us. I didn't really understand their business marketing strategy there.
Well, if the market were more like me, because I bet both.
Well, that's the thing there. They're hoping for someone like you to
sycophants
to offset the one person that didn't buy anything. But so yeah, they had worked before on a project, and it's cool to see them go on another creator-owned book.
This will be a 12-issue thing, right?
I think it's at least currently it's ongoing now. I think the first trade, the first story arc, at least I think you can get in trade right now.
They've done some Black Hammer stuff together too, like Barbalian or something like that.
I think he had. Well, I don't know. Walter drew that.
He drew it, but I can't remember if Lemire wrote it.
I don't think. I think the Barbalian was written by Tate Bromble. I think, but all of that is, you know, story wise filters through Lemire. Yeah. But he's not credited with scripts, I think, on that. But you're right. I think Walter did draw the that Barbalian miniseries. So,
all right. Shockingly, we are approaching Columbus rapidly, so we need to do this rapid fire for the rest of it.
And this is, I mean, what I got left. I mean, most of my honorable mentions you guys have already touched on.
Yeah,
I mean, from Animal Pound, in terms of, you know, a modern update of Animal Farm that's going to be good. Oh, the Ash Can is out right now, and there's only like one issue will be out later this month. It'll be out. Issue 1 will be out by the time you listen to this.
That'll be on the 2024 podcast.
Yeah. But, you know,
I've got 6 things here that haven't been mentioned.
Talked about that. We mentioned Real American Hero, 8 Billion Genies, Clear Darling, World Tree. You know, I'll mention, you know, Saga is back. They're doing 6 issues a year. Saga is still Saga. Saga is still great.
Great.
Always great to see that. I do want to mention another OGN came out through Image called Parasocial. It's written by Alex DeCampi, art by Erica Henderson. It is basically a modern update of Misery. Okay. You know, built around the idea of con culture, fan culture. You know, we're in the car right now on our way up to a convention. A lot of people will go up there and they'll pay for their autograph and a photo with some TV or movie star who was in a genre project, you know, that sort of thing. This is a story about that, where kind of an obsessed fan kind of latches on to kind of a failed-ish actor who was once a big star on a genre show, genre project kind of thing. So it's called Parasocial. Again, if you know Misery, just take that mindset, but spin it forward into a modern day and think of what some of the modern day conventions and trappings of our world would be like, thrown into a story like Misery, the same setting. So yeah, Parasocial, go out and read it. It's an OGN. It's out there. It's a great story.
Do you mind if I throw a few out?
Sure.
This is stuff that looked good to me, but I did not have the time to read it, and most of it I've acquired at least an issue of.
Oh, so this is the would have read but ran out of time list.
Right. So Kaya by Wes Craig.
Kaya's a pretty cool book. Yep.
Wes Craig. Mm-hmm. Anytime there's like a single creator like that, I get pretty interested. Same deal with Beneath the Trees Where No One Sees by Patrick Horvath. And that's another single creator thing. I'm very interested in. I only read one issue, and I liked it, but I couldn't put it on the list with just one issue. but is Briar by Cantwell and German Garcia.
Briar's a pretty cool book.
I
think there's a sequel.
I think there's
another second arc or something.
Right, and I think there's a lot of hype for All Against All, which I pulled but haven't read.
I haven't read that one.
That's Alex Pagnadel and Caspar Wingard. Serial is already mentioned. Night Fever's already mentioned. Damn Them All by Cy Spurrier and Charlie Adlard. It looks like I like Cy Spurrier. It looks like I will like it, but it's not exactly for me. But I suspect it will be good. And then my final one is a fun one, which is The Great British Bump Off.
Yeah, so...
which was a fun first issue, but I haven't gone any deeper.
So it's funny you mentioned that. That's on my list here because it is... how do I explain it? It is part of a much larger connected universe of stories.
Which one is this?
The Great British Bump Off. Okay. It comes from... the main character is a character named Shauna Wickle, who was a character as a child in a series of stories called Bad Machinery, which was a webcomic written and drawn by John Allison. Bad Machinery itself was a spin-off of an original series, the first series called Scary Go Round. Also spinning out of that series was another book called Giant Days, which is one of my favorite books of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Giant Days initially was drawn by an artist, Lisa Trimman. Eventually, Max Sarin took over, and they also draw The Great British Bump Off.
I didn't realize that was a spin-off.
So they're all connected in what's called the Tackleford universe, I guess, which is just an area, I believe, in West London. All these characters at various stages and points in their life, like literally from like being in elementary school when Bad Machinery starts to graduating into high school now to being in university age where Shauna, the character, is in Great British Bump Off. You don't have to know any of this stuff to read these books, because Great British Bump Off in itself is just a fun take on if you like Great British Bake Off or the shows like that. But it is part of this larger connected universe of characters, which, yes, I have also read all of that as well. Because John Allison is a great writer, and his webcomic is a lot of fun. And Bad Machinery is my favorite of those various series. Oh, I guess Giant Days is. Giant Days is probably my favorite. But they're all connected there, and you see these characters all show up in different stories. It's very, very strange. Again, because you got to figure out when, like, what time period of life we're in, because characters show up in different stories at different ages, even if they're just like guest stars. So it is all connected, but Great British Bump Off is a very fun and very silly kind of, murder mystery. I think it's 4 issues, I think it is. But Max Sarin is a great artist. I love their work. I love their character work. I don't think anyone does faces and expressions better. So that's a fun book to go read.
That is high praise from you.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I had on my list, by the way, was one that I was very much looking forward to, liked it, didn't love it, which was Hairball by Matt Kent, Tyler Jenkins, Hiller Jenkins.
That was weird.
It was weird, right?
It was weird, yeah.
Really pretty.
Yeah. Wasn't what I was expecting, though.
Cool first issue. Right. Yeah, right. So it did subvert expectations because it was very easy to be like, oh, a horror book with a haunted cat or something like that.
Yeah, possessed cat, yeah.
Well, yeah. So there's a big cat on the front cover. It's Ken Jenkins. You have my money twice now. And it was watercolored. The whole book?
I think so.
Yeah, I think it was.
I think so.
I mean, that's kind of a Jenkins thing anyway.
Yeah.
Hillary loves watercolors, but if you read other Hillary Jenkins projects, like she said in her interview, she does some weird stuff.
Yeah, she does a lot.
King of Nowhere, W. Maxwell Prince. She was using all kinds of objects and blood and things like that on the pages.
Yeah. So, but a Hairball was it was interesting.
It was worth reading. I'm glad I read it.
Yeah.
I can't say it was my favorite thing I read in 2023. Sure. And if someone was interested in Matt Kent, Tyler Jenkins, Hiller Jenkins, I wouldn't start there.
No, probably not. There are other stories you could tell from that creative team. So.
All right. Well, and we are pulling into the parking garage for the Columbus GalaxyCon of 2023. No, we're driving past Parking garage.
We're going to the
But we've been hearing Google Maps narrate.
We're going to
the last minute
another
of the
parking
podcast.
garage. Yeah.
left here. No, I'm not.
All right, Alex, you got time for one more shot then?
Well, no, I'm not going to do one more shout out. I'm going to shout out a bunch of big two Marvel and DC books that I've really enjoyed.
That works.
I'm a big X-Men fan. I love what they're doing right now. The Hellfire Gala 2023 came out over the summer. Was a big, massive, huge event that started the current era of X-Men books, which is now called Fall of X. It all started there. That was very cool, very shocking, like legitimately shocking stuff. Gods, Jonathan Hickman and Valerio Schiti. There are 2 issues in. I still don't even know what it's about, but it's interesting. The kind of the pitch is it's this kind of story struggle between what he calls the powers that be and the natural order of things, aka the struggle between science and magic and science. The powers that be are magic, natural order things are science. It's this kind of large, grand, cosmic, epic scale story, but it's just started. It's interesting. I'm going to keep reading, but I don't know if it's good yet. Like I honestly, I can't tell you if it's good. I don't know if it's bad yet either.
But are you enjoying it so far?
I am, because I'm interested in it.
Well, that's not nothing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's good or bad yet, but I'm interested. So, worth shouting out. Star Wars Darth Vader, written by Greg Pak, art by a lot of different people, mostly Raphael Aneko. But that continues to be the best Star Wars book of all the 4 main storylines, main books they got going on right now. Darth Vader is by far the best. I love that. Nightwing, written by Tom Taylor, art mostly by Bruno Redondo. This current year, he's had some fill-ins like Tom Rowley and others. I think Nightwing is the best superhero book, just hands down right now. And definitely at DC.
I was going to say best DC for sure.
It's definitely the best at DC. Although coming up real close could be the new Wonder Woman, Tom King, Daniel Sempre. There's only 2 or 3 issues into that now. It's basically Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman takes on toxic masculinity, basically. It just started. Also, don't know where it's going to go, how it's going to proceed. But so far, in right now, couple issues. I like it a lot. I think that may be my last one. You know what? Last one's a Boom story. It's Once Upon a Time at the End of the World.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, which is Jason Aaron. Yeah.
Finke for the first stretch.
Yeah, Alex Finke the first stretch, Layla DeLuca in the middle, and Nick Dragata at the end. This year was interesting because we got issues 3 through 10 of I think going to be a 12 or 15 issue total arc series overall, which means in this calendar year we got issues drawn by all 3 of the artists, full issues drawn by all 3 of the artists, because we got issues set in all 3 of the time periods. So it was very cool. One of my favorite books that have come out, one of my favorite creator-owned books that have come out in the last couple of years. Just very cool to see this story told over, basically the lifespan of the characters. So that is my last honorable mention there.
Awesome. Andy, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
I'm sure we'll have you at some point. We'll have you back on again. We'll figure out a way to do it. Maybe when we're not in a moving vehicle, but who knows?
I reserve the right to chase this later because I do the editing, but yep. I think it's going to sound relatively good. I think this will be the best podcast episode anyone's ever heard recorded in a car.
It may be. Who knows?
Please take the parking ticket.
Anyway, want to wrap this up here, Mike?
Now we're definitely in because I hear the parking ticket loud and clear in the mix.
Yeah.
So
maybe you scan it at the end. I don't know. Anyway,
thank you for listening. We will see you next time with actual comic books instead of this meta talk about books.
Yeah, maybe.
But you can find us at storiedarcs.com and on our social media profiles, which you can find there and on our link tree. And thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Peace.